Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the
Hey,
Dork Talk. With me today, Brian, Michael, and Hannah. And we're going to be joining the controversion today. And whew, that's we're going to talk about The Last of Us 2. Mind you, this will be filled with spoilers. Like we all finished the game. So if you haven't played the game yet, or you don't want to be spoiled, click away right now and come back when you have played it. Okay, guys, first of all, before we start this off, it was controversy, by the way, the word I wanted to say.
Controversial.
Controversy. Shit, I can't even say it again. I mean, I was practicing it. It's controversial, but it's anyway.
Have another sips.
Well, before we start off, let me ask you, because I think this is pretty important for how you experienced The Last of Us Part 2. What did you agree with Joel at the end of The Last of Us 1? If you guys can remember the ending of The Last of Us 1.
No! You fucking animal!
Carrie, shut the hell up.
I think it's not that easy of a question, because if you're in his shoes, you 100% make that decision every time. But as someone else looking in, that's totally the wrong decision.
yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. After playing the second one, you realise that from the first one, but playing the first one blind straight and you haven't played the second, you 100% agree what Joel did. You were 100% there with Joel, like you were going to save her life no matter what. But,
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think, Hannah?
The thing is that me personally, I would not know what I would do if I was in a situation. Let's say I have a little brother. What if he was the one who was immune and I would save him? I honestly wouldn't know. I mean, I get it why they did it, because I know a lot of people don't agree with Joel's decision to save her, because she's not related to him whatsoever. But I get why Naughty Dog did it plot-wise, because it is very difficult and it is a very harsh game. So I get why they chose to make Joel this kind of a bad guy at the end.
Yeah, because it was
a world, because he fucks over the world, basically.
Because it definitely was a big turning point at the end of that, because I think you were kind of expecting a happy ending at the end of that, and then it just kind of like got you by surprise, like, oh, this isn't as happy as I thought it would be. But taking in regard like Joel's past, because I started playing Last of Us again yesterday, and that beginning, man, like that started, the first hour of that game is so hard. Like it slaps you in the face. So taking into account that what happened to Joel's daughter in the first place, and how he probably lost his wife and then his daughter, and then has to take care of Ellie. Taking that into account, is it that far-fetched that what he did was like out of the goodness of his heart, or like he wasn't going to lose another daughter again? Because that's basically how I experienced it back in the day.
Yeah, more like that. It was more a remembrance
Like
of how.
Yeah, like I can imagine that every father out there is with Joel on that one, or everyone who's lost a kid before or whatever. Like, because I was rooting for Joel the whole time. I'll never forget that. Like those people had to die.
Yeah.
But I think the way how you felt towards that ending of the first one, I think that really is a big. Like that really matters how you will stand playing the second one, because it starts off pretty bad.
oh yeah, pretty intense the second one, isn't it?
Definitely. So before we start discussing, real short, what were your guys' experience with part 2 of The Last of Us?
I thought it was a masterpiece anyway. That's all I'll say.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm with Brian on that. It's a masterpiece. 10 out of 10.
Okay.
I agree. It's Well, I'm saying the first part because I think we all know what the first part of the game is, the first half. That to
You can
me
talk
was,
openly because I mean it's
yeah,
spoilers
well, the
anyway.
part
So you
with
can,
Ellie was,
yeah.
it was everything I hoped for, and it's much also plot wise, and we all knew Joel was going to die. We all knew it. We knew it as soon as they put out the first trailers, teasers. Joel was going to die. Otherwise, what would be for Ellie be the motive to kill all these people?
That's very
Yeah.
true. But did you expect it to be as soon in the game as it was,
Oh,
and
no,
as brutal as it was?
no.
Because I think like the way I like that whole first segment of the game, like I'm gonna call it the opening. That's the moment that the game starts until Ellie and Dina take off on Ellie's revenge quests. Basically, like that whole segment before
Jackson.
that, yeah, it's basically for me that's the start of the game.
Yeah.
First of all, like the first thing that I've written here is that there's not enough Joel in there to start with. Like you start the game with him, and I think it's like a 5-minute intro, maybe
Yeah.
6-7 minutes that you
Were you
ride the horse.
Were you
Go on.
surprised that you started with Joel? Were you surprised?
No, not at all.
No, no, same. A
Not
lot
at
of,
all.
like my brother was. He didn't expect it, and I was like, I knew you were going to start with Joel. I
I
didn't
thought it
know
was
it was.
gonna. I thought it was gonna take longer. Like I didn't.
Yeah.
I like you kind of expected that he was gonna die because you knew it was about Ellie in this one.
Yeah.
But I didn't. I like. It took me by surprise that it was like in the first hour or something.
Hour and a half, depends.
And that's actually one of the things that I would have done different. But we'll get to that later on. Let's just because that whole intro scene is beautiful, but it doesn't hit the same notes as the opening of the first one. Like it's a lot chiller, and the world is beautiful. Let me say that right away. Like this game is amazing graphic wise. Like it looks amazing. There's nothing like the PlayStation 4 really is at its peak with that game. I feel like. Yeah, so there's definitely nothing bad to say about that.
I think I used my memory of my PlayStation 4 just for like all the screenshots I took. I just shot it away. It was like
it is pretty. But even that, like, that's even something I've written down. Let me just say that right now. Like the moment you start the game, it's very colorful. Like it's really pretty. The sun is shining. Like everything is kind of like happy, sort of in a sort of way. Like there's a lot of color in the game.
Yeah.
And I think it starts around after that open segment you do with Dina and Ellie. And the game just starts getting grayer and grayer, and it doesn't come back until you start playing with Abby. Then the game gets its color back. And actually the game is at its darkest when you're playing with Ellie.
Yeah, is that
That's
the
something you
show?
noticed?
Yeah, is that the show that there's something not right with Ellie and her mental state?
Oh yeah, definitely.
I haven't seen many people talk about that. Like,
no, because it's so subtle. It only like because I've been watching some reviews and some critique videos about it in preparation for this podcast, and it's because it's really like the first 4 hours of the game that are really colorful, and then it kind of slips into this depressing gray state. Like it's raining constantly. The last few segments with Ellie, constantly raining and like a pretty hard storm even.
Well, I think it has a lot to do with plots. With like you get on this quest with Ellie to murder the ones who murdered Joel, and you get like more and more this twisted revenge story. And we all know, like from all great stories, how they talk about revenge is always like two-headed snake or what they ever say. So we see Ellie like sucked into her own darkness because she doesn't see a bright world anymore. And that's very important from her.
Is that the Ellie you remember from the first game?
Of course
because
not.
that's not the Ellie I remember
No.
from the first game. And could it like is it just seeing Joel die that made like that kind of turn the knob inside her head?
No, I think it's from
because they had a good life. Like Jackson seemed like a good place to live in the
But they had
kind
a
of
good life
world
for only
that
4
they were in.
years. So
Say
it
again,
wasn't
Hannah?
a life.
Say again, Hannah?
It wasn't a good life. They just lived there for 4 years, and Ellie has been left behind and betrayed and dying people around her like all her life.
Agreed. But comparing Jackson, like the place they live in when the game starts, compare that to everything they've been through in the first game. Like compare it with Boston in the first game. Like that place is a miracle, man. Something like a community like Jackson is a miracle in that post-apocalyptic world. Why would that make you bitter at all? Like, of course she was mad at Joel. There, go on, Brian.
But you see, like in Boston, she's still an innocent little kid, and
Yeah.
she, even when you kill that guy, I've actually done that part today. When she kills her first guy, you can see how much it kills her.
Is that
bad wording? But like after the first game, she knows like Joel has lied to her to start, and she's still harboring that resentment the whole time they're living in Jackson, as it's told through the flashbacks. So I don't think it's been all sunshine and rainbows. Like,
fair enough. Although you do see at the ending that she gets a flashback where she kind of made up with Joel right before he died. So, but I get what you're saying. Yeah, definitely. But let's jump to the part of Joel's death, because that's a very interesting discussion where most of the people don't agree with it. Like the way not the way he died, but how he came to be. What do you guys think about that?
Like, not to jump ahead of everyone, but I think like they've been living there in Jackson for 4 years, and they've been seeing new people come in all the time. They mentioned that in the script and so on. And when they meet Abby's group, they're being chased by like a massive horde. There is no other option whether just to go inside those gates.
But why are they so trustworthy? Why are they so trustworthy from the beginning? Because if you remember, the last scene of Last of Us 1 is Ellie and Joel come up to Jackson, and they are greeted by Tommy and Maria and some other guys, and they have immediately got their guns on them. Immediately, they don't start off by trusting people that are at the gate. It's only until Tommy saw it was Joel that he was like, oh, I know this guy.
Because I would say
what changed?
They would still be on edge when they just got there because of what they've just gone through. Whereas now they've been living there, they're relaxed. Joel has got 3 bathrooms in his house. They're so relaxed. And they would have gotten soft, I think. Like, and
I don't believe that.
Couple that with they had no other choice but other than be eaten by that horde than to run in. And it was actually what's the brother's name again? Tommy, is it?
Tommy, yeah.
It was actually Tommy that fucks up and says their names.
I'm Tommy. That's Joe.
I can follow what you're saying about the horde, but as soon as they're in, because they're running inside with Abby, and then they run into a room where there are like 6 people, and they are not wary about that. Like, mind you, that Joel was the one that didn't trust anybody in the first game.
Yeah, so but has he gained a lot of trust? Like what Brian said, he's got comfortable in Jackson, and like Brian says as well, there's been a lot of people come through, so they've probably been out and about a lot and have seen new people come through, and that's what obviously Joel and Tommy thought these Abby and the mates.
But it's not like they didn't have to deal with raiders or anything after they settled in Jackson, because they've been doing patrols for 5 years. They must have come across some bad people. Besides,
you probably would have been able to tell there were bad people. That looking at Abby and her mates, they don't look dangerous to them. They don't look like they're out there to kill someone. They look like they're out there as a group, maybe looking for something. Trying to survive. Just maybe looking for a new place to stay.
I think where you're coming from, Sam, but I also think they would make like Joel and Tommy look like they relaxed a little bit. They just been killing infected and some bandits, but yeah, I think they just grown soft and let their guard down.
I have another argument.
It can happen to the best, but maybe that's. Okay,
I can get that, but I have another argument that backs me up basically is that the game starts off that Joel is telling Tommy what happened with the Fireflies and what's happened with Ellie and the choice that he made and how special Ellie is being immune. And Tommy even says like when they enter Jackson, he says like I'll take it to the grave if I have to. Like it's serious, man. And even in a flashback with Ellie, Joel says to her that she has to keep wearing her mask because people can still come after her if they know. So why does a man that is like literally looking over his shoulder every time because he knows the Fireflies are still out there and he knows that people might come after Abby, walks into a room with 6-7 strangers and tells them his name?
But it was Joel. It
And
was
the same with Tommy.
It was Tommy who said while they were running away from the horde, it was Tommy who said to Abby, like, "I'm Tommy. This is Joel. What's your name?" So it's first. It was. I don't remember. Well, I could be wrong. It was Tommy who put it out first. And Abby,
Well,
like,
that's even stupider because like Joel literally told
stupid.
Tommy an hour before what went down and how they have to be careful. Because what was the point of that story otherwise? You see, that's like the kind of things that doesn't add up in that scene. And I can see you all thinking like, shit, he's right.
I'm actually not. I'm just trying to think how you've come across that.
I knew about his arguments and I knew about that it's indeed very illogical that Joel is indeed like, or Tom is like, "Hey, I'm Tommy, I'm Joel, hi, bye, nice to meet you." It is weird. And
I've written down they should always be suspect someone coming after him or Ellie.
yeah.
They should. They should, but
go on, Brian.
No, go ahead, Mike. Go on.
I was just saying, as far as they're concerned, that the Fireflies have gone. There was no inkling of any Fireflies kicking about anymore till later on in the game when Tommy finds out there is, or apparently there is Fireflies. As far as everyone was concerned, there was no Fireflies at all. So Joel was never worried about that. So he would have never been.
Hey,
it was always
shoulder.
I think it was what Michael is saying. Like indeed, like he killed the queen bee of the Fireflies, Marlene. So that's his main reason for killing her is saying like you only come after her, boom. And then 4 years is a long year, especially in that world.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just letting his guard down. If I was looking at realistically how it would be in real life, I think it's just letting his guard down because 4
like
years
is
long and
he's getting old, he's getting soft.
Killed the leader of them, so he was probably worried in the first few years, but after 4 years it was like maybe. But that is indeed a plot mistake that they have thought more through.
But I get what you're saying, Brian. Like because they did save Abby, so they shouldn't be maybe that suspicious of her. Although I think that was just done for extra dramatic effect for the player. Like how dare she got saved by Joel and now she brutally murders him. I think that a lot of things in this game are done to either shock the player or manipulate the player, and we'll get further in that later in the talk. Killing off a beloved character so soon can be done, but it's hard to pull off because you gotta have solid writing afterwards. Did the writers kind of live up to it and kind of made it work?
There was a good reason for it to do it. I don't know if as soon as that was really necessary or not, but for me it kind of worked. It kind of worked because it gave an immediate drive to the plot. It gave me like why this game is actually happening, because like you said, Jackson is a very happy, colorful place. You can play a game there. You gotta move away, and you have like 4 hours in Jackson that is really nice, and you walk around, you get to know new characters, but you can't stay there for 10 hours. So I think that's the reason why they killed off Joel that soon, to get a move on with the plot and get the rest of the 20 hours over in Seattle.
So do you feel the weight of Joel's death when you're playing with Abby? Because the game is trying its hardest to make you forgive Abby and to make you sympathize with Abby.
Well, the first few hours of Abby, I wanted her dead. the first few hours of Abby, I was like, I can't believe they've done this to us. I can't believe they've made us play this player. But then when you start getting the backstory and find out what was going on, and obviously learn to know her friends, you sort of like, well, she's kind of on a similar path to what Ellie is on.
Exactly. I did like the twist with Abby's dad being the doctor in Last of Us. That I did like, and
that is something that they've, I think, done brilliantly. As in, okay, the first time I played it, and I started as Abby, my first I was like, oh God, no, seriously,
I was saying,
seriously, let me play with her for so long. But then I indeed saw the backstory of her and the flashback as well with Ellie as with Abby. They're brilliant. The flashbacks with Ellie, I literally cried when they're in the museum.
Man, could you imagine just...
Happy birthday, kiddo.
The moment that you start playing with Abby is so poorly chosen. Like, I don't know about you guys, but the only new character that they introduced in this game that I liked was Jesse. And then Abby shoots him in the face, and then directly after, I have to play with Abby. Fuck that.
Yeah,
How dare you? How dare you, Naughty Dog?
Weird point of turning around. But all my other favorite characters that they introduced in the second part, those two kids. I love those.
I love Lev and Yara as well. They're brilliant.
Oh,
Which one you mean? Like
the scars, the little kids.
Oh, Lev and Yara.
Lev.
Yeah, they were class. Yeah, they were really good.
Loved it.
They were really good. They were introduced really well too.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a part we actually already saw like 4 years ago.
Mm.
That was the trailer, wasn't it? The bit with Abby.
People thought that she was Ellie's mother originally.
Sorry,
I can't
what?
even remember that.
People thought she was Ellie's mother originally in the trailers when they showed it first time.
They were wrong.
Yeah,
I can't
big
remember
time.
the
Very
early
wrong.
trailers.
If I have to say one moment, it was my least favorites. It was while you play as Abby
I have to
kill
fight Ellie. Again, the same thing.
Like, what are you doing, Naughty Dog? It's like
And they made exactly.
I really didn't get.
And they made it worse by showing her shoot Jesse again. Like she shoots Jesse again, and then Ellie runs off, and you gotta fight Ellie as Abby. Like I didn't like that at all.
When I got that bit though, as Abby, part of me wanted to kill Ellie. Like, I'm not even lying.
I
Like
agree.
when she just before she jumps on the stage, I shot Ellie. I've never shot someone so quick in my life. I was like, you're dead here. Like I was a bit angry. I was really angry at Joel and Ellie at that time because you knew what was going on. You were like, right, I'm gonna kill her here. So I shot her straight away. But then when we went backstage and started fighting, I kind of didn't want to fight Ellie. I sort of like was like, oh damn. The reason why I play these games is one of the reasons is Ellie.
Exactly.
Just absolutely amazing character.
Exactly.
It was so twisted that I did that, and honestly, I still don't know why. I don't see why they did that. Okay, I get it. You know, it's the Abby chapter. I get it, but plot-wise and towards your player, I didn't get it. There was a one part that I say like, no, you should have cut it out or made a cutscene of it, or just no.
For me, like you're with Abby, you're just coming from Scar Island. You've just seen Yara get killed. You've seen Yara's mother get killed. You're after barely surviving on a boat, and then you come back to the aquarium. Now, Abby doesn't know Ellie killed the pregnant woman by accident or killed her friend by accident.
Yeah.
She's
It
just
wasn't
come
an
in.
accident.
I know,
No,
but
she
it was her.
No.
But she's just come in and seen all her friends slaughtered. So for me, I felt as Abby, I was like, oh. When I got to that theater, I'm like Michael. I just wanted to kill that bitch.
Yeah, and then I kind of had a problem with is how they really are trying to make Ellie look like the bad guy. And there are a few things that the game does, and I checked this, and it's true. First of all, the dogs. You are kind of taught from the start that the dogs are annoying, and the best way to handle the dogs is to kill them, right? Because otherwise they smell you and they alert the guards, and basically, and they bite really hard. So you're fucked. So kill the dogs. as soon as you can. You only do this as Ellie. You don't kill dogs with Abby. You pet them and you play fetch with them. That's my point number one. Point number two is enemies scream a lot louder and more severe when you're playing with Ellie than they do when you're playing with Abby. This is facts.
Between the
This
two of
is
them, but I know they scream louder since the other.
Oh,
game.
they scream like, yeah, but it's only with when you play with Ellie. Like you shoot a guy in the leg and he's like, ah, ah, ah. And they don't do that when you play with Abby. And even more so.
Headshots. I did once a headshot with one of the female guards. And a headshot, she was dead and she still was like, ah,
Yeah.
ah.
Yeah, the game bugs out sometimes.
Like you're dead. Just
and what's even worse is like when you play with Ellie, the wolf soldiers, they have names. They have names and they call each other by their names. And it doesn't happen when you're playing with Abby because the scars don't use names. These are like little things that make you kind of feel guilty the more you play with Abby. Like, oh shit, like the girl with the PSP that you slit her throat. And then afterwards you talk to her with Abby and she's all joyful and gullible. And then you as a player, you have to feel bad that you slit her throat.
This is heavy. Yeah, but I don't think Ellie meant to do that. She wasn't going for that, was it? She only went for it because the lass attacked her. I don't think Ellie was going to kill her.
No.
Because when she does it, she says shit. She's like,
yeah,
that was stupid.
Yeah.
But I think that's what Michael wanted to say, like with Ellie's mental states, is that she's indeed like going downwards on what I said, like being sucked into her own revenge. So she's like, after the hospital scene with Nora, was it? She's just completely.
Yeah, she's gone after
that. She is killing everything on her path.
That was another point.
In that way, yes, Ellie is kind of the bad guy in that point.
But I don't want Ellie to be the bad guy. Like I didn't want to torture Nora. I had to, because there wasn't another option, and I wouldn't have minded as much if it was like a cutscene where I didn't have any control. But the game made me press the button. They made me press the button to hit Nora until she gave up that info.
Didn't you want that at first though? Because obviously you want a revenge for Joel. So at that time at Ellie, I was like, I'm pressing square as many times as I want here, because I wanted dead.
Standing her head in, like.
Yeah, I wanted to kill everyone. Like, when you start off as Ellie and then Joel gets killed, everyone in that room I wanted dead. Like it wasn't just I wanted Abby's the first or Abby's the last. I wanted all of them gone.
Yeah.
So when it come to Nora, I was like, nah, you're done here. Like, I'm gonna smash my control to end you. Yeah, and same with Owen and Mel. I wanted like.
So you feel you didn't change.
At that point in the game, you didn't know you were going to play with Abby, so you were like,
no, so you didn't know,
kill all these people.
Yeah, exactly.
Kill Nora, kill Owen and Mel. Yes, sure, I want them dead, because that's where you're driven to in the first part. That's what you also want, because you also root for Ellie and root for Joel. And you want Ellie to get her revenge. And then the second part with Abby starts, and you're like, whoa, this is not what I expected.
So, it's kind of all about context. Like when you're playing as Abby or as Ellie, geez, I'm getting confused myself, as Mike and everyone else has said, I hammered those buttons to kill those people because you don't know any better. You want to get your revenge for Joel or whatever. But when it switches over to Abby, you see the context of why it happened, and thus you feel empathy.
Exactly. I definitely noticed the growth that she went through during her campaign, and how she definitely changed because of guilt, especially towards her caring for Lev. And that's also something that I really liked about like the kind of metaphor that Lev and Abby are kind of getting a similar relationship as Ellie and Joel.
Yeah.
Which I liked in the end, but I just can't like, or I don't like how they really did their best to make Ellie into basically the bad guy of this game.
The bad guy of the game's not Ellie, it's Joel. Joel's the bad guy of the game.
Actually,
Joel made Ellie who she turned out to be.
But don't you think that letting Joel die as early as he did kind of takes away from that?
No.
No,
Like
I don't think so.
if it was later in the game, like
Joel's choice at the end of the first game is what accelerates this second game story. If he doesn't make that choice, there's no Abby, there's no infected, there's no
no, I
WLF
agree.
scars.
But I think like this game should, like how this game played out now, should have been the third game. Should have been Last of Us 3. It's like we're missing a part in between. As fans, don't you think?
But
No.
I wouldn't agree.
what is there to tell him Jackson? Like, there's nothing to tell him Jackson. That's
There isn't anything else.
Wouldn't you guys, as fans, wouldn't you have liked to play more with Ellie and Joel together, besides the 1 or 2 flashbacks? Because I would have.
Just more with Ellie, because I was
just more with Ellie.
First pissed, but like a little bit disappointed, and like, oh, I get bad reviews now. When I started playing with Abby, first 5 hours, I was like, oh man, I don't feel like playing actually. But then I got to know Abby a bit more, and then you know it's still good gameplay, and you're like the locations you go through with Abby are really cool, and also like deserted cities, something I love. So I got to know it, but I would have liked to play more with Ellie. I wouldn't mind it.
That's funny. That's good that you said that, because it's also something that I've written down. Is that the segment with Ellie feels a lot more broken up than the part with Abby, and definitely more than the first game. Like the first game really, it's how did I write it down? Like the pacing seems off. Because I think it has something to do with how Ellie always goes back to the theater, and that you kind of have like a level structure, a mission structure, which you didn't have in the first game, because the first game you just traveled across the USA, and that was one flowing story, and this kind of feels like you're doing missions, and between each mission you go back to home base, and then set off on the other mission. Did you guys feel the same way?
Not really, because she had purpose to go to different places. She knew it, just keep a central place. And the only reason why they had a central place was because of Dina and being pregnant. If Dina wasn't,
it's justified. It's justified.
Yeah. So, that part with Ellie, it just felt like obviously it is very structured, but the map that you have give it another reason why it is like that. Because at one point, she's not even looking for Abby. One point, she's looking for Tommy. Like, she goes to that suburb, doesn't she? And she's going to that suburb where you meet Jesse again. Yeah. She's going there not for Abby. She's going there for Tommy.
But she does think that wherever Tommy is where
that Abby might be. Yeah, that's what she's hoping. But there's so she's always not looking,
because she's all. I mean, I don't think that for a second she went after Tommy. It was always Abby. That's also the reason why Ellie and Jesse eventually split up, because Jesse wants to go to the marina where Tommy is, but Ellie wants to go to the aquarium where Abby is.
Was that because she thought Tommy was where Jesse was?
Oh no, they knew Tommy was there because the wolves were talking about it. Yeah, so they would talk. That's the sniper scene.
Yeah, the sniper they're talking about.
That we did with Abby. It was basically that.
I died so many times during that sniper scene. That was a really good sniper.
That was a bit, that was pretty impressive. But I think every enemy.
Pace, I did miss a little bit the road trip feeling. I would say, like in the Last of Us 1, it was
exactly. That's what I mean.
Summer, fall, spring, winter, spring. I didn't miss like the long, like it was like a real road trip, and all the chapters were so different and so diverse. That's what I a little bit missed, but they made it up by making Seattle such incredible location. If
it's village, definitely a good location.
The island, the sea, the aquarium, the whole flooded city. They tried, and I think that they deserve a good point for that. But pace-wise and feeling-wise, I did miss a little bit like the road trip feeling.
And don't you agree that you have that more with Abby's storyline?
Yeah, Abby's more
because
of like
Abby never goes
Yes,
back to the
because
same
Abby
place
really
except
knows
the
the place
aquarium.
is.
the first one's very linear. It's a one-shot story. It's A to B, and that's all the story is in number one. Where Last of Us 2, they decided to shake it up a bit and give you a whole like mess of stories. Like, I don't know how many times did you just pick up a lot of the letters and read through the letters?
Yeah.
There's
Second time, yes.
there's a hell of a lot of story in there, and a lot of
It's
that
good
story
world
as
building.
well. A lot of that story paints the WLF. Is it WLF?
Yeah.
It paints them in a really bad way. Because they would obviously they got the army in who they were the same army from the first game.
Yeah.
Like the
Fedra.
WLF, WLF are just trying to rid the world of them, where the Fedra are trying to rebuild the world. So
The Fireflies were doing the same thing in the first game. Like they were battling the Fedra as well.
yeah, but they were trying to build their own version of what instead
Society.
of like so Fedra was
Their
more
version
like
of
a police
society.
state, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's what you.
Fireflies were trying
That's
to
what
bring
you
them
see.
normality.
Yeah, that's what you see in the first 2 hours of the first hour of Last of Us Part 1. Is that it's basically a military state, like military law.
like 6 hours, yes, in Boston.
Yeah, like I kind of like I felt that Abby's part of the game felt more like the first part, like first Last of Us than
It doesn't
Ellie's
have
part.
to be. That's it. It doesn't have to be a part. They say Last of Us Part 2, yes, but people, like all the bad reviews that I saw, and of course my friends and people around me were like, "Oh yeah, it's so different from the first part," and I'm like, "Yes, like Michael said, it's what the first game is A to B, but the second one is so much more diverse." And what I love about, like, I always try to see the good in the bad, and I was like really like questioning first Abby's storyline, but then I realized, like, wait, we got like only a glimpse of the world of the USA in this like 25 years after the zombie apocalypse, and with Abby's part, you see so much more of the world. You see, like I said, like this whole religious group and all the people there around, and all these other different groups that also Dina mentions in like New Mexico, and you just get to know the world of The Last of Us so much more, and it doesn't revolve around Joel and Ellie anymore. It's not about them anymore.
Yeah,
and I'm
like
not mad at that.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Like Part 1 didn't have as many groups or characters.
No, it was Fireflies and Fedra, and
everything in between were like enemies or zombies. Yeah, that's true, because the world isn't bigger, because it's one city wherein Last of Us Part 1 you're traveling across America.
Yeah.
So you can't say that it's a bigger world, because it literally isn't. It's much smaller, much confined. But it's true what you say. Like you get to know more aspects of said world and more different, like the different groups and how they all. That's what I liked about it, is that the scars were so primitive compared to the WF. That was a very nice touch, definitely, and also how they whistled. I actually loved that.
Smart. It was so smart.
Well, it was and it wasn't, because they literally gave away their position every time they did that. It was like, okay, like just follow the whistles.
No, but it's like a language. They talk to each other through whistles. Yeah. It's really there's actually, I think in Russia, like a little village who does that, like whistling across mountains, like, hey, I need more of this or that. So I think you got it from there.
It was pretty cool, and the first time it was terrifying as well.
Yeah, it was terrifying. Like, what
the first time I nearly lost my life.
I was like, "What's that? What the fuck?"
You
get shot by the arrow.
Oh, that was a moment.
I saw it in the gameplay trailer. The first time you see the scars was in the gameplay trailer they released like more than a year ago. And I have to say for myself, it was way more stealthy than the person in the gameplay trailer. So.
How did you guys like the stealth mechanics? How did you guys like the new features like the grass and the prone and?
Love it.
Loved
it. Finally.
Being able to craft silencers and stuff like that. Yeah, that was class, wasn't it?
I think the bows worked a lot better as well in this game.
What was that, Brian?
I think the bows, they worked way better in this game as well.
I loved it when I got the bow with Ellie. That
Because
was I was waiting for that.
Yeah.
Replaying the first one now, I'm like, I can't use the one in the first one.
Yeah, it's awful in the first one, the bow.
Yeah, it had a weird mechanic, like it would kind of like you throw,
Like,
like how you throw stuff. Yeah, you had a very weird mechanic. But this one was, the bow was very good. I was actually kind of sad that Abby didn't get a bow. She gets a crossbow. Yeah, she gets a crossbow.
Yeah.
But she gets it pretty late in her story, like over halfway.
Both of them get the bow really late.
True.
Yeah,
I was
that's
hoping
true.
for the bow a little bit early. Because in the first game, it's like the third weapon you find.
Yeah.
But
How
what
do
I
you
love
guys-
the most about the gameplay is just this very simple thing, smashing windows.
Oh yeah.
I love that.
Oh
I
yeah,
really love that.
Finally.
That was
And
brilliant.
how enemies react to said
Exactly.
window being smashed. Definitely, that was
I
a very
smashed
nice
every
touch.
car window that there was.
And how did you
I
guys?
find a lot in cars.
And those drinks machines too.
And the
you
vending
smash everything,
machines. How you can like create parts. The vending machines that you can smash the vending machines.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was really good. How did you guys? I was going to ask a question, but now I forgot. I forgot what I was going to ask. It has something to do with the windows. Doesn't matter. But that was. Oh yeah, I remember now. What did you guys think about the rope physics?
The rope one where you're on like the first floor of a building and you had to smash the two windows and throw the rope over. I thought that was genius. Absolutely genius.
Best puzzle
they
of the
really
game.
looked at Uncharted for this one because they also
did.
have a lot of rope mechanics. So I was like, finally, that's only logical.
I think. Yeah, go on. Sorry.
They have so much to, like, the real world has so much to offer, like physics wise, as in smashing windows and crawling and roping, that they didn't, I guess they couldn't do in the first game because of technology limits, I guess. Now they finally did it, and it's
and the way the levels were designed, like,
yeah,
because I really liked how each level now has like multiple parts that you can take, and how eventually everything comes together in the same point, because it is a linear game. Before I go any further, I did like how they showed us a glimpse of what an open world Last of Us game could have been, like the first
very
part.
Lost Legacy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it was very like Lost Legacy.
Yeah,
which was a brilliant game.
Nice.
I liked it a lot. I really liked it a lot. Like how you could
I
explore that
wouldn't know
part.
if I would like The Last of Us if it was an open world, because I know Naughty Dog is always like a very straightforward plot, and if you want to like make choices, you play The Witcher or anything of Quantum Dream. But I like how it goes forward. I know, and I like how it goes to one point. An open world is nice, but it wouldn't work for me for The Last of Us.
No,
like,
it wouldn't suit it.
I think they'll have to find like a sort of middle ground. I think like the way Final Fantasy VII did the remake, it's a linear game. I mean, there's no question about it. But the way the hubs are created, it's basically like it gives you an open world feeling, because there's so much, like there's pretty much to do in those hubs, and there are multiple little secrets you can discover and stuff like that. Like I would say that A Last of Us could work if you do it like that. Like the story is going to be linear, but your levels are going to be way more open, and even maybe with some open world hub areas, like we saw in the first part when you set off with Dina, and you get that like that little area you get to explore, which I haven't. I think I missed half of the content in that area. Because I didn't know there was, because I didn't know it was so open.
Did any of you shit your pants when you were in a coffee shop in the bathroom?
Yep.
Yep. I was like,
why did he do that? That was a good moment. That was a really good moment. There was one boss fight that I completely went through all my ammo. I think you all know which one.
The Rat King.
The big guy in the parking lot of the hospital.
That was a nightmare there.
That was
awesome,
man.
amazing.
What the fuck
Brilliant,
was that?
Like I was surprised.
Me too.
The design was really good. Because I thought, because when they zoomed in, when you're running through the hallway and they zoom in onto the bloody handprints, and Abby's like, oh, what did this? What went through here? And I was like, yeah, it's a
bloater.
it's a horde,
It's a
bro. It's a
bloater.
horde.
I've
You
seen
can
bloaters.
see the handprints, and it's like this big dude with 8 arms, and yeah, that was awesome.
I remember I was playing it, and the first parts you gotta run. You gotta make sure you run. Then there's a part where you're like in the hospital downstairs where you have to fight it, and I didn't know because, well, I didn't look it up beforehand, and it was first time for me playing it.
Oh, so you thought you had to run?
And trying to like flamethrower bombs, but nothing seemed to work. I was like, what do I do? And then after like the 14th time dying, I was like, okay, fuck it, I'm gonna look it up. And the first sentence of the article said, make sure you're well prepared. I didn't know.
Yeah. There's a lot of ammo laying around in that area as well. But it's really intense. Like, because I think I thought this game was kind of lacking boss fights. I think you have like 4 in total.
I don't mind.
You fight the guy Boris in his garage, like where you get the bow. That's like the first boss battle. Then you fight the big guy with Abby. Then you fight Ellie, and then eventually you fight Abby again. These are like basically the boss. Oh no, there's the big guy from the Scars as well.
That was a mad fight. That was graphic.
Cool. That was really cool.
I did boss fights. I mean, there was no boss fight in the first game. It was just shooty.
There was just the bloater in the high school. That was it, I think.
Yeah. No,
that was the hardest one in the first one, wasn't it?
Boss fights, and they did it now, and I was like, I don't like it. I didn't like it because it was always.
Maybe it's out of character.
It was before the first strike. It was 1 strike, dodge, strike. Then it was strike, dodge, strike. Then it was strike, 3 times dodge, strike.
Yeah, it wasn't Sekiro. That's a fact.
I didn't need it. I really didn't need it.
Thank God.
Oh, there was one boss fight in Last of Us 1. David's. But that's it.
Oh,
yeah, David, yeah.
That's it.
David.
But that's it.
Rest in
And
peace.
and even that part of Last of Us first one, I don't like playing that much. So I didn't need the boss fights. Big problem with the ending, because a friend of mine noticed
because
it.
Abby didn't die? Because Abby didn't die?
No, nothing about that. Is that we all thought at the one moment that it ended, but it didn't. It's like the first time she's in the farm with
in the house, yeah
with JJ and Dina. But
I hated that.
I don't know. It's exactly it's the
again,
start of the Last of Us 1. It's you're not my blood, but I care for you.
That's very good that you bring that up because that's another part in the game where the game is trying to force you to see Abby, to see Ellie as a villain, because she's been at that farm for close to a year because the little kid is all like not like big. It's big. It's not a baby anymore. Like it's a baby, but it's like a man baby. So they've been at that farm for close to a year, and then Ellie is like, you know what? Fuck that. I'm gonna kill that bitch.
But it's Tommy though.
That's Tommy's fault. That's Tommy's fault. Tommy
it wasn't
put
like
it back
Tommy
in the head.
But he wasn't pushing or anything.
He did. He really pushed her.
It's the straw that broke the camel's back, like.
Yeah.
Maybe.
He fully triggered her again.
You can see with her flashbacks of Joel being on the ground that she's already there. She just needs that little push, and that's what Tommy gives her.
Did that flashback come before or after she met with Tommy again? Yeah.
Before.
No, she has that flashback when she's trying to. She's drowning.
Oh, when
Abby,
she's
isn't she? And she realized.
Yeah. She gets it the first time when she's doing the sheep thing.
Yeah,
she's herding the sheep.
Oh yeah, when she has a nightmare.
Yeah. And then afterwards Tommy comes and then she gets it again. Yeah, that's true. So maybe all she needed was a little push. Could be.
She's been living with that trauma, I think, while she's doing it all the time.
I don't know what I think about the whole Santa Barbara chapter. Gameplay wise, I fucking loved it. I mean, it was
gameplay wise.
Last of Us tropical.
Best part of the game for me.
I thought it was fun with all the being in LA,
everything.
like part of the country we've never been to.
That was the best part of the game.
I would understand if Ellie was like, I love Joel, he wasn't my blood, and I love JJ, who is also not my blood, and Joel settled with me, and I can settle with this. I would understand it. I would understand that Elle decided like, you're not my blood, you're not related to me, just like Joel wasn't related to her, so I can settle myself here. I wouldn't. I don't know. So I've still.
But considering what she gave up, and considering that Abby spared her life not once but twice.
Twice.
She spared Dina. She basically spared JJ. How? Like, I don't believe that Ellie is so. Like, she killed all of Abby's friends. Like, every one of them. I can't believe that Ellie wouldn't kind of have the feeling like, okay, enough is enough. Even though she's still caught up on the whole Joel's murder thing. Like, the scale is totally tipped over to one side.
What do you mean by? I don't understand what you mean.
I mean, why isn't there a point at the end of that game in the house where Ellie is like, enough is enough? When she has a happy family life, basically, she has Dina, she has the kid. She basically got her revenge because she killed everyone that Abby loved, like Abby killed Joel, the person that Ellie loved. And eventually Abby spared their lives because she would have won. She would have killed Ellie, would have killed Dina, and she didn't. So why would Ellie still be so stuck up on revenge and still go after Abby?
A mental state. She never got closure.
She never got closure
till she almost killed Abby. Then she realized this is why it shows you that screenshot of Joel again, and it reminds her back that revenge isn't going to bring anything back. But revenge is not going to.
It was all or nothing. Violence.
Yeah.
Violence isn't what.
And it's like how one of my favorite TV shows says, like, revenge is a two-headed snake.
Yeah.
You see your enemy getting bitten, you get poisoned yourself.
Yeah, it doesn't end. Yeah.
It's
just
basically
keeps on going.
that. Like, Ellie gets so sucked up in her revenge that she literally loses everything herself.
Yeah.
And that's what no one wants to start revenge.
It starts off like that.
It starts on, all it is a revenge plot, a revenge film, and then it just switches, and it switches in some of the flashbacks for yourself. It switches because so when you're playing as Ellie, you're just like, nah, I'm going to them all dead. Abby's gonna I'm gonna choke her. I'm gonna smash her face in. And when you start going the flashbacks, and you could see it subtly that Joel's trying to say that revenge isn't. You shouldn't rely on that type of thing, and he's like,
but I think it's
sympathy in that.
But I think it's really like a little bit fast to say that Joel is the bad guy, because eventually Joel didn't really do a bad thing. He saved Ellie.
Yeah, but that cost of what? What was the cost? The cost was bigger than Ellie. And even Ellie said she doesn't think her life has meaning. He took that away from her. So Joel, regardless, even Abby says it's not about the death of her dad. It's the death of
everyone else.
Millions of people. That's what Abby's revenge was for.
What Ellie does at the end, she ends up losing Dina. She ends up losing JJ.
Yeah, loses everything.
She loses her fingers, so she can't play the guitar.
Oh, that was
that's the part I think that she realized.
That was amazing.
Fuck, what did I do?
Yeah,
she wanted to play the guitar and she couldn't.
She doesn't play the guitar anymore, and she can't it's almost impossible to play anymore. Yeah. And you can see in her face and how the story ended. You can see that she realized, like, oh damn, I actually lost.
Like, that scene is heartbreaking. Like,
yeah, it's heartbreaking.
The one thing that she and Joel was connecting still was the guitar, and she couldn't do it anymore. No. So,
but is that the ending that you guys wanted for these characters?
I had no idea what to expect from the beginning.
No, but just speaking from your heart and speaking as a fan and speaking as a person that loves these characters, because you love these characters. I mean, it was the best game for a long time.
When you're in that,
yeah, go on.
when you're in that fight and it comes up, press square, when you're trying to drown Abby, 3 or 4 times I died because I didn't want to do it. So
That's so
when I-
weird, man.
when I
Because I
eventually
wanted,
did,
yeah, I
when
wanted
I
Abby
event-
dead until the very end. That's so
When
I
weird. It's so
eventually-
weird
when I
how.
eventually did it, when I eventually did it, I was like,
Oh,
no, go ahead.
ladies
You go ahead,
first.
you go ahead.
When I eventually did kill her, or did press the button, I was ready to throw my controller out the window if she died.
That's so weird, man.
Yeah.
That's how invested I was.
That's so weird.
It is such
Because
like, I mean, if I were to think about let's say the perfect game after Last of Us 1, like ideally I wouldn't I can't come up with a plot like that, but let's say that there was, we would have been having this discussion.
yeah,
But
No,
it's
definitely. It's the most talk. Like I've never
so-
had any game talked about like this.
oh, there isn't.
so complex
Mhm.
to have this simple storyline in the first game, because it is simple.
Yeah, it was simple
Get
as
the
A
girl
to B,
over
innit?
there and get a bond, and the way to have a part 2 of this is just nearly impossible to do. It's like then they should have waited another 10 years. I mean, then
No, true.
then
But can you?
they would have, but it is so difficult to go with an evilly good story as the first one, because however you see it, the first one is still the best story. To get like a sequel to it, it is so hard
Mhm.
because it's so open. And I think they tried, and at some points they was like, yeah, but at some points I was like, this is exactly what I wanted. So
Fair enough.
like I said, I give them like a 7 out of 10, because
Story-wise,
it's so difficult. It is so difficult to come up with a
it's
sequel
difficult. Yeah, definitely. I
the
just
level
feel.
of the first game.
Mhm.
So of course there are going to be mistakes in it, and people say like, oh, that's bullshit, blah blah blah. But I think it's the best they could have done.
Yeah,
I think if you look at any fandom nowadays on the internet, there is no right answer, because you're going to piss off people anyway.
yeah. Because
So-
people at the end of the day, like people with The Last of Us had one story in their head, and the ending was Abby dies. Because it didn't happen, it was kind of like, oh well, you've destroyed my game, you've destroyed my story. At the end of the day, it's not your story; it's
Their
how
story.
their story, how they show it. At the end of the day, in Last of Us 1, did they give you an option there whether you should save Ellie or not? There was no
No, but
option.
again, that's what I meant. Like there wasn't, like for me personally, there wasn't a moment of doubt in those final moments. Like there wasn't a second that I thought, oh yeah, we should sacrifice Ellie.
But
Just
that's how I
that's kind of what I missed in this game. Like there was no reason. Like I felt no reason to spare Abby at the end.
I get you, but that's how Naughty Dog does their games. And what I want to say earlier is that if you want to play a game with choices, play something from Quantum Dream.
Yeah.
With too many choices.
I want you to let Emma go.
Based off the leaks and stuff like that, which we're not going to go into because they were basically bullshit.
Yeah, it was a little. Oh, it was.
But I think a lot of people kind of written the game off based on those leaks.
Yeah, they did.
But they're lost, man. Like I
yeah.
would definitely recommend playing it. It's like not like this conversation basically proves it that not everyone is going to walk away with it with the same feelings.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
It's actually amazing that a game is able to do that.
Yeah.
Oh, you can't name another one.
Nope, definitely can't.
Detroit Become Human.
I love
But
that
it
game.
depends how you play it.
Yeah, but that had different endings
Yeah,
by
that
how you
choices,
played
didn't
it.
I know.
This basically has the same progression and the same beginning, the same middle point, and the same ending, but yet people walk away from it with totally different opinions, totally different
Do you
feelings.
have an example, Michael?
What, of a game?
Another
Yeah.
game
Like
that
this?
did this?
No, there's never. Not that I've been playing games since the 80s, so there's never been a game that's done this.
No, I can't even say that any other game even comes close to.
The
This
only
is
thing
kinda
that
controversial.
reminds me a little bit that there's like 1% is like the Assassin's Creed Odyssey when with the like you can also choose like the play with the girl and the guy. That's the only game that had a little bit of a controversy, but almost nothing because you could basically bone everyone in that game. But
No, it's like as a game, it's awesome. But like when I played the first one and I finished that, I was with everyone else. This is game of the year. Point. I don't have that with this game. What do you guys think?
Game of the year for me.
Game of the year for you, Brian?
Game of the year for me, yeah.
Anna?
I'm not sure because there were like I said, the fight between Ellie and Abby in the end.
Yeah.
And,
well, you all
especially the first fight with both of them, the way you had to play as Abby. So
true. You're somewhere in the middle.
I enjoy it. I'm gonna play it. I'm gonna play it on different difficulties. And I'm just gonna keep playing it because Naughty Dog knows about gameplay.
That's true.
They know how to pull it off. So that's actually the favorite part of the game. That's why I played Last of Us like 50 times already, just because it goes so smooth. And the plot is of course really good. But I will keep playing it. So that's what I gotta say.
Well, you're all wrong anyway because Cyberpunk 2077 is going to be Game of the Year.
Too late to become Game of the Year.
I'm looking forward to that one too, really.
It's coming out this year though, Michael, so it's not too late to be Game of the Year.
No, it is. The cut-offs the start of November.
Well,
so it's not in it. It's Game of the Year next year. There you go.
Be Game of the Year next year, definitely.
Well, depending on how good Horizon is.
PS5.
See,
we definitely have a chat about that as well.
Yeah,
guys, I want to thank you for coming out and bearing with me and having this chat, especially Hanna.
Thank you.
Wonderful to have you with us.
I was dying to have a conversation with someone about this, literally.
Yeah, me too.
Everyone around me hadn't played it, doesn't play it, or didn't finish it yet. I was like, but I want to talk.
Well, that's why I invited you. I thought you would have enjoyed it. So yeah, thanks guys. I'm gonna cut it off right here. I want to thank everyone who's watched this, and see you next time for another Dork Talk.
Yay!
Bye.
Why did I do that? No gang signs. What the fuck?